Hello everyone, and welcome back to our Artsmark Celebration Week in Conversation with Interviews. I'm delighted today to be joined by Sean Sly, who's Deputy Headteacher from Royd Nursery and Infant School in Sheffield. So Sean's come along to tell us about his school's Artsmark journey, and we're delighted to be able to celebrate their success as well and being awarded Artsmark Gold. So you're very welcome, Sean. Good morning. So before we start, it would be great, Sean, if you could just tell us a little bit more about your school.
Okay. So I'm Sean Sly, I'm the Deputy Head at Royd Nursery Infant School. We're situated in Deepcar in Sheffield. Historically, we're a two-form entry, but due to kind of birth rates and things, the dynamics of our setting have changed over time. We've also recently inherited 2-year-old children. So we now have children in 2-year-old provision. We've got a nursery. We've currently got 2 reception classes, and then as it stands, we've got 3 mixed year 1-2 classes. But as I said, historically, 2-form entry. So we've always had 2-year 1 and 2-year 2 classes. So a relatively small school. We've got an executive head who is across both our school and the junior school. So our children transition into Deepcar St John's Church of England school. And that's been a really positive kind of partnership as well, because we share practice amongst each other. So yeah, a really lovely little school with kind of that really cohesive approach from 2-year-olds all the way up to 11-year-olds effectively.
That's fantastic. Thanks for that, Sean. And also now you've recently been awarded Artsmark Gold, as I said at the start. So huge congratulations. That's fantastic news. And so that, that tells us as well that the role of the arts within your school and the profile of the arts is really strong. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? So where does the arts sit in terms of its profile, maybe in terms of your ethos, your values? That would be great to hear more about that.
Yeah, it plays a huge part. So I'm going to be really open and honest with you that when I was actually at secondary school, I didn't opt to do music, and I didn't opt to do the arts either. And I think I came from a background where my dad in particular was probably a little bit old school and was like reading, writing, maths, science, kind of engineering, get a trade, maybe that sporting background. But obviously coming into primary school, you deliver all subjects, and it's really important that you have that passion for absolutely everything. And when you look at it from the angle that from a jobs perspective, for example, the arts industry is like $1 billion of pounds industry, isn't it? But also it's not just gearing children up towards being kind of musicians or artists or being in that field. It's about having that passion as well. So actually that for the social and emotional aspect, just going to watch performances, or even it could be that you might not do it for a job, but you can do it for a hobby. And if you don't kind of give that level of exposure and kind of obviously that reflection from kind of my early childhood, actually I feel that I really missed out. And it's quite sad actually that I didn't take music, or I didn't take art as a GCSE subject really. And I suppose you kind of out of something bad comes something good. And it's kind of really that passion inside me has just made sure that actually that the arts is a really important kind of overarching subject, and it's a really key driver for our kind of curriculum. So as soon as you kind of walk through our door, the arts smack you in the face. So we've got like a core values display in the entrance, and there's a range of pictures that kind of showcases what our school's about. And already, obviously you can't have absolutely everything on there, but one of them is that you've got a picture of children producing a live performance to parents, or in a band, and they're playing the keyboard and they're playing the drums and they're singing, so they're like a musical group. Now if you look actually at the key stage 1 objectives, we just need to focus really on percussion, but we want it to be so much more about that. So from that particular, it wasn't just a musical aspect, like the confidence to get up in front and perform in front of, and the teamwork to work as a team. And things didn't always go great, and they had to have that perseverance and the resilience. And then as soon as you're allowed kind of into our school because of safeguarding, you need the code to get in it, and you walk into the first corridor and you just see this huge display. And you're kind of walking down the corridor, and the display that's up at the moment is linked to the snail and the whale book. So you've got a range of things that children have developed. So you've got like various sea creatures kind of hanging from the ceiling and waves, and it's all 3D. And the first impression is like, wow, like this school is so passionate about the arts. And the theme continues really, that when I first started working at this school, there was loads of walls that were kind of like blank spaces, and there's no blank spaces anymore. So for example, to my left in the office, we've got a huge tree that's now on the wall that previously was a blank space, or it might have had a little bit of artwork, but it wasn't artwork that the children had done. And the children have produced clay leaves, and they're all plastered around the tree, and it just makes a really boring kind of wall look really exciting. And that's a common theme. I could kind of go on and on. Another thing as well, that we had by the outdoor toilets, we call them, there's a blank kind of space there, and the children walk past it all the time, and you can't really use that space for anything. Can we ask the children what they wanted? Because that's really important, that pupil voice. And they wanted some mirrors, basically. Do you know those mirrors that make you kind of short or tall?
Yeah.
And the problem is, because they were so passionate about that, it became a bit of a bottleneck, and it was a bit of an issue. So we had to refine it a little bit. And then kind of moving on from there, that the children really wanted an art gallery. So now we just have a range of things. It's not just kind of sketches or paints or pastels, it's 3D models as well. And then obviously we've got like the drama aspect, and that's a huge driver within kind of our English cycle as well, because if you can't internalize a story, how are you going to kind of be able to write about it? So like hot seating, role play. We do a lot of kind of actions to internalize it. We've done a range of kind of projects really, just similar to like the Artsmark. We've used something for like computing. And one of the strengths that came out of there is one of our strands, obviously there's 6 half terms, but one of the strands is around the arts. So it's like we use paint, so the children kind of do like graphics linked to the topic, and then the other aspect we use music. So everything's kind of intertwined. Things aren't standalone, and it's just such a huge driver, and the enthusiasm and the passion and the quality that all stakeholders have really, that whether it's staff or whether it's children, but sharing it with the parents, it's really nice to see.
That's amazing, Sean. Thank you. You really, every time I speak to yourself or, you know, other members of staff from your school, it's certainly that passion, dedication and commitment, especially from the leadership team. And we talk a lot about that in Artsmark as well, that communication about the importance and the value of the arts. When you see that in schools where that's so strong, you can see that the provision is incredible. And you've given such brilliant examples there of how the arts can help develop a sense of belonging and ownership as well for the pupils, which is something as well that Artsmark really encourages schools to look at, like just those wall displays, the snail and the whale, where you know, the mirrors for the outside, the wall near the toilets that you explained outside, that's all come from the pupils as well. So they can see themselves reflected in those decisions. And something a lot of schools have said since lockdown is, you know, we really need to work hard at connecting the school community again. And they're brilliant examples, absolutely fantastic. Now, obviously, in terms of your school's Artsmark journey, Sean, you've had 2 journeys, so which puts you, you know, in quite a unique position. So you've gone through Artsmark twice. The first time You were awarded Artsmark Silver, and then of course now Artsmark Gold. Are you able to tell us just a little bit more about how you feel your school progressed or developed or changed between those two journeys, and kind of the very much the impact Artsmark had on your second journey as well, if that's possible?
Yeah, so I think first and foremost, the self-review kind of process and the framework where you kind of outline like bronze, silver, gold, I think platinum now as well. It really gives you something to aim for, really, and you can't go from 0 to 100, can you? So I think every school is on their own journey. So it's, for us, it's not about getting gold and wow, look at us, because actually when we achieved silver, that was a huge achievement for us as well. And in equal measure, we had strong practice, and therefore we were showcasing we're already doing bronze. But just having that framework, it just ultimately, as a primary practitioner, you have lots of plates to spin. You're not just spinning the arts plates. There's a range of subjects, but in equal measure, you're liaising with parents, you've got data, there's a whole host of things. And I don't kind of want to play this down, because the people at the Artsmark do such an amazing job, but that's the plate. The arts is what you're spinning, and you're the experts. And it's kind of using that framework and your people such as yourself, like that, those levels of expertise to kind of support us and kind of get us on that journey to be as successful as possible, which consequently it's only going to benefit us as staff, and then it's only going to benefit the children as well. Because obviously if we're not doing the right things as staff, the children aren't going to have the right diet. So yeah, I think everything needs to be celebrated, really, whether it's bronze, silver or gold is kind of irrelevant, really. Like I said, that we started off at silver, and that was a huge achievement for us at the time, and still is, and still very much celebrated. There were aspects of the gold criteria that we were doing. I think it was just kind of dotting I's and crossing T's. So when you look at values and ethos, we've got really strong values and ethos, and hopefully that's kind of come across as kind of as I've been speaking this morning, and leadership as well. That for example, that I'm obviously sit on the senior leadership team, but we have curriculum teams, and the arts isn't, I'm not responsible for the arts. We've got a member of staff that is, and we work in curriculum teams. And when we went for the silver award, at that given point, the member of staff was relatively early on in their career. So when you look at leadership, it doesn't mean that we had poor leadership. It's just like that developmental process. And our teacher found that looking at the framework and working with yourselves a really important kind of tool to help her as well. That particular member of staff at the moment is currently on maternity leave, but what's really important is that the arts doesn't go to pot. It's really important that it's a sustainable model. So like I said, for our setting, we work in curriculum teams rather than having just a subject lead. So that's meant that the member of staff that's now on maternity leave was already working with a member of staff, and very much that process has been maintained. So again, in terms of values and ethos and leadership, we've got a strong model there already, but the process definitely did help the subject lead. So there's kind of that, the children engagement, I think that kind of links back to your values and ethos. It's kind of intertwined again, isn't it? So there's really high levels of engagement, but I think a big thing for that is pupil voice. So we speak to children, we listen to children. It's not just doing things in isolation, but for example, we do an arts week. So we're in a really strong position as a school. So we really have autonomy to do what we want. So as a school, what we noticed was that obviously we kind of get the children, because we've got young children, after 6 weeks they come back, we get them into those routines, and then all of a sudden we just get them where we want them to be. Because for some, like for 2-year-olds, or even for some of our reception children where they've not been to nursery before, we've kind of got to work on that, and they are young in the nursery infant school. And then we have that October half term, and they've gone that little step back. So we've done like an arts week where it's kind of like, right, there's no reading, there's no writing, there's no maths. all we're doing is the arts, and the children absolutely love it. But what they do in the arts, we speak to them, we listen to them. So for example, the children kind of wanted, younger down in school, they wanted their driver to be through books. So we got a range of books out, they voted for what book, and the arts is all around that. Whereas the children further up school, they wanted to do environments because they'd done something similar in science. So they wanted, and geography, for example. So they wanted to do, one class wanted to do around like North America, the other class wanted to do around Africa. So because we've listened to that, and the whole driver has been around that. But that doesn't mean that we can't kind of do more for the children. And just through listening for the children, when it's kind of been National Story Week, rather than just kind of reading them a story, we kind of said, right, what activities do you want to do? And one of the things I really wanted to do was an arts activity. So we had like this huge kind of picture. It was it was linked to a Julia Donaldson book, Room on the Broom.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure that's the title. It's something like that.
Yeah, I know.
And the children created this huge picture and painting that's now on display in our school, linked to that book. But that wouldn't have happened without speaking to the children.
Yeah.
So it's just that kind of, yes, we need to have a clear overarching aim as a school and direction, but also it's important to listen to children. I think that just that self-reflection, and that's really kind of enhanced our engagement and our curriculum designers as well. One of the things, the range of offer. So, for example, I do think we have a broad range already in our school, but then we kind of did that self-reflection and we're like, right, music we don't think is quite as strong as the arts. So, for example, I spoke earlier in this conversation around a performance that children had done, but that came about consequently as this process. So we got an external company to come out and work with us. And between the silver and the gold, we'd become more heavily involved with a music hub. And for example, one of our key drivers in our unit of work in the spring, it's called Beat Band Boogie. So the main driver is music, and we link that particular one to Rio de Vida, which is all around carnivals and Brazil. And the music hub come in and we kind of kickstart it, and they do this huge performance. So what we've tried to do is balance music that wasn't necessarily as strong and a high profile as maybe drama and art, just so it's that consistent approach. It doesn't mean that we weren't doing music, because we very much were. We've just raised the profile of it. And then outside of that, you're looking at extracurricular club activities. So with School Sports Premium, we had so much to offer around sports, and we've got a pretty broad range of activities outside of that. So, for example, computing, the children come in for that. Like they've done a library club. So we've got but when we looked at the arts specifically, again, I don't think our profile was strong enough. So we've worked on that, and we've done a whole host of things. For example, this half term, one of the things that we've got going on is a drama club. So it's just kind of using, we can't do everything, but over the course of the year now, we've really got a strong offer, which we believe is important. We're really passionate on continuous professional development. So I think it kind of goes without saying, from my background, coming into primary education, probably not the strongest artist, but ultimately the children that were in my class at the point of time when I was teaching, it's not fair on them to have a teacher delivering a session that isn't passionate or doesn't have the skill set. So CPD, we do a lot within school, and the member of staff, not just the member of staff, we've got so many talented staff, but the member of staff that leads the arts. And also we've got some really talented staff, teaching assistants, for example. They do lots of CPD and support with modelling. And that's kind of enhanced myself and other staff. And then, like I already said, we work with a music hub, but we also get professionals in, not just delivering staff meetings, but working with the children. And kind of we kind of make notes, and we're involved in the session and kind of seeing that modelling. So I think CPD's always existed in our school, but we've refined it a little bit and just kind of added to it. So that was an area that we worked at. Partnerships, I think that kind of intertwines. I've kind of spoke about lots of partnerships that we've got. So, and then equality and diversity as well. I think, like I said, that we spoke about kind of Africa, and we've got a connection with another school that's quite a diverse kind of setting as well. So they're just things really that things were happening. We just needed to strengthen them as well. And I feel that the Artsmark journey and using that framework and looking at kind of the next step for us, which was gold, is kind of just helped us on that trajectory really. And without that, what you don't know, you don't know. You probably would have just continued doing the same things. And whilst liaising with other schools, we would have had more strings to our kind of bow. Oh, they've got strong practice. Why don't we try that? And we do still do that. But that wouldn't have brought about all those positive changes that I've just kind of shared with you. Very much the Artsmark process has helped us with that.
That's absolutely fantastic, Sean. Thank you for that really comprehensive overview. And yeah, it's just really inspiring to hear about all of that, all of what you've said. And I'm sure the schools listening, there's so much there to kind of think about and unravel. And I love the fact as well as something that struck me with CPD. I know we might talk a little bit more about that later, but with your school was the support that was given as well beyond the CPD with staff. So it wasn't just, you know, attend the CPD session, everyone had a fantastic time, and then it was, well, what's the follow-up? And I think sometimes that can be a challenge for some schools to continue to support teachers to develop those skills they learned in the CPD, and learn from each other. So that's something that struck me from your particular journey as well, I remember. So that was really great.
Yeah, I think just outside that as well, but when we talk about support, just kind of want to say that we also felt very supported from yourselves as part of this process. So the particular member of staff that drives the subject was quite worried about the process of pulling all the evidence together. And right, because I'm not saying it's assignment, because by no stretch of the imagination it was. And I'd been through processes myself, but I can't do everything. It's about that distributed model. So I feel that that level of support throughout the process, if we had any questions, we could always come to you. So we were really supported. And I feel that as a school, it's just like you were saying, we've got systems in place. And it's not just kind of rolling something out. It's about having discussions with staff. Where do we feel we're at? Constantly reviewing kind of against a framework and our journey, right? And it's kind of that intent, implementation, impact, isn't it? And you don't just get to the end product straight away. And actually the implementation process, it is quite a complex process. It's like you're not just going down the M1. Sometimes you have to go around the country roads to kind of get to where you need to be. And success isn't linear. And I'm not saying for 1 minute, it sounds really rosy what we've done, but we've had to have kind of those critical kind of conversations and those reflections. And when you roll something out, you're not always great at it at the first time, are you? If life was that simple, we'd just go straight to our driving test and pass our driving test. We wouldn't need any lessons. And some people need 20 lessons, some people need 40. So I think it's just kind of, we've created that culture. We've got a really strong growth mindset at our school, and staff really care about the children and want the very best for them. And sometimes we've had to put extra into certain staff. One of the things that I've really kind of not mentioned, and is a huge driver, is dance. So through this process, I've got a really strong relationship with a dance company, and I've done a video for them similar to this. We had a deep dive in PE as part of the most recent Ofsted cycle, and one of the things that they looked at as part of that was dance. And for example, in that, it went really successfully, but as part of that, we've got a strong CPD model. So if a half term 6 weeks, for the first 2 weeks we get a dance coaching, where they coach the session and the member of staff watches. And then for weeks 3 and 4, it will be team teach. So as that teacher in our setting has kind of developed their confidence, they'll kind of bounce off the dance coach and they'll deliver aspects, and the dance coach will deliver aspects. And they'll have conversations to talk about what went well and what didn't. And the last 2 weeks, the teacher delivers and the dance coach kind of gives them that feedback of their strengths and their areas of development. And we did that for several years, and we've got an ECT at the minute. So they're very much there on that journey. Whereas we've got another member of staff further up school that isn't getting any CPD in dance because they don't need it. And then we've got another member of staff that they don't get 6 weeks, they're getting 3 weeks. So week 1 is they're watching the coach. Week 2 is their team teaching, and then week 3 they're delivering. And obviously, if that's successful, the teacher will then continue. Whereas if we're kind of getting a little bit of feedback that maybe they're not quite there, then we'll put something else in place. So it's just that kind of constant CPD. And we actually we won an award at the Sheffield Sports annual awards for our CPD model.
Excellent.
So we're constantly looking at things kind of around that, because consequently, if staff are the best that they can be, then ultimately the children are getting the right diet. And going back to kind of that growth mindset and that culture that we've created, staff aren't looking at each other and thinking, oh, you've got no CPD.
Yeah.
Does that make you better than me? It's not about that. We've all kind of got our own strengths, haven't we? We've all got kind of our own Achilles heel, so to speak. And goes back to me, for one, I'd still be on the 6-week cycle. But as long as my children, as part of that cycle, are getting a strong diet, which is what they are, because we've got that coach in, ultimately all the children are meeting the same end goal, which is the most important thing.
Oh, that's absolutely brilliant, Sean. And yeah, what you said earlier about the importance of reviewing, reflecting, what kind of support does this person need? What does this person need? This is all about growth. This is all about the process. This is all like creativity, as you said, it's not linear. Everyone learns in different ways. And I think that's a fantastic example of such a vibrant culture in your school that is so supportive, and the environment is inspiring, where people feel they really want to learn. So that's brilliant to hear about. And you spoke earlier about pupil voice. So I know that, you've given really good examples of that as well, where pupils are encouraged to express their ideas, express their opinions, but not only express them, but that children feel valued because they know that their ideas are being listened to as well and reflected on, and that's so important. Is there anything else as part of your most recent Artsmark journey that you feel has had like a real impact on your pupils through the arts? So that might be increase in engagement, increase maybe in attainment or well-being, or anything else that you're like, we noticed a real change or a real development there?
Yeah, I think well-being with COVID as in particular, the well-being aspect's huge. So I think that when we returned from COVID, one of the messages that kind of is out there, that, and whether this message was right or wrong, was that we really needed to prioritize reading, because that had kind of had such a huge impact. They'd obviously done a lot of research, and to be honest, in our setting, yeah, it really had impacted. So we needed to be creative with our timetable, and increase the number of reading sessions. But there's only so much time in the day, isn't there? So if you're going to kind of increase something, that kind of means something might need to go. And I've kind of heard like a range of things, like, for example, like schools reducing from 2 hours of PE to 1 hour of PE. So, for example, there's a dance session potentially gone straight away. But the other thing, I always remember that one of the teachers had come to me within kind of the first couple of weeks, and had mentioned that they'd done a dance session, and the coordination, because obviously the curriculum for for Key Stage 1 PE is agility, balance, coordination. And they said their coordination was, for the class, was all over the place. So if we're just doing reading, we're shifting the other problems, and then we're not doing kind of dance, we're creating more problems. So we were really passionate of, right, what we are not going to do is get rid of the arts. What we are not going to do is get rid of dance, drama. We're still going to do that. We need to look at another way to amend our timetable, but those subjects are not going to go. So I mentioned that I didn't necessarily come from an artistic background, but I did come from a sporting background. And if I was a child in these times and you turned around to me and said, we're going to get rid of 1 hour of PE, I would have really resented that school. And when you look at the benefits of the arts, the well-being, kind of that is quite tranquil, isn't it, as well? And there's loads of teamwork that goes on within it, perseverance, results, all those kind of those roots that make the tree strong that we've spoke about. It would have been criminal for us to get rid of those. So I think that, yeah, well-being for some of our children returning from COVID, because they'd not seen their friends for so long, and they'd been stuck whilst we offered a really successful online package for COVID and parents, and we actually had a lot of children join our school on the back of that because they've seen that they'd saw what we'd offered kind of in lockdown. But it did still show that they were impacted on with their well-being, but through doing those kind of sessions and continuing the arts, I really feel it supported our children's well-being, and consequently that had strong impact in attainment such as your writing, reading and maths, because I'm a big believer that if you're happy, you'll always go the extra mile, and our children at our setting are really happy children. Again, I'm not saying that we don't have our pockets, but we really pride ourselves on parent relationships as well to be as successful as possible for those children, and the arts play a huge role in that.
And that leads really nicely on to parents and the wider community as well. Sean, I'd love you to tell us a little bit more about that. And I know that the work that you did during lockdown through the arts digitally to engage the children and their parents was brilliant. And are there any kind of, because this is an area I think that can be, particularly is very important for a lot of schools now, to reconnect with their parents. Many schools have seen a decrease in parental engagement in parents' evenings, even attending in-school events. So this is something that's a big priority right now. Have you got like any other examples that you can share about what you did that you found particularly effective through the arts specifically in engaging your parents and wider community?
Yeah, so for example, we offer a lot of kind of parent workshops, and like you say, it's about really important about getting a balance. So we want to catch all children. So as an example, in Key Stage 1, once risk assessments had changed on the 1st of April and kind of parents were allowed to come back in, we were kind of straight on that. Parent relationships are key. And in Key Stage 1, we did a science workshop. And that's great, obviously, for science because we're spinning that plate. But then we need to spin other plates as well. So, for example, in 2-year-old provision, nursery and reception in November, so some of these happened last week, some have happened this week, and for 2-year-olds, they're happening towards the back end of November, so haven't happened yet. A big driver for that is the arts again. So a focus for our nursery this week was around kind of Diwali and the Festival of Light. So when I popped into that session with parents, it was a stay and play session. There were so many creative different things. So children kind of had the chalks out and were kind of like drawing. And that wasn't just in the indoors, that was the outdoors as well. And the paints were there. And all of these range of activities. And then there was some clay put out to kind of make 3D models. And you could see all of these parents, we had so many parents there. And they were kind of absolutely everywhere, but in loads of different pockets of the provision. But again, arts was very much high profile. With, again, just that kind of reflection. So earlier in the academic year, as part of Macmillan, we did do a reading session with parents, but sometimes we've kind of found that maybe certain sessions aren't as well attended as others. And what we've found over time is the ones that are more practical and the parents maybe don't have that fear factor then. So our parental engagement's been really high. It's been really well attended. And again, it's creating that culture, isn't it? So our parents' evenings are very well attended, but what we make sure that kind of happens is that any parents that don't attend, we do catch them and we make it flexible, and we speak about kind of the arts with them as well. But we also have an open door policy. So parents in the morning, our doors open at 8:40, school doesn't start until 8:55, but parents are allowed in with their child in the morning. So if you're going into EYFS, you can see the provision, what they're doing. If you're coming into school, you can see the displays. So on the topic wall, for example, you'll see pockets of art. Their topic books, their English books, their maths books, etc., are all out there, so parents can have a little flick through. In the computer suite, for example, sometimes we do workshops in there. Like I said, one of our computing aspects is music and art, so they'll see that in there. So it's kind of all around us what our parents are kind of seeing, but we're having those discussions, we're having those workshops as well. So it's a real positive. In terms of wider community, we're huge on that as well. We're really passionate. So not linked to the arts, but for example, our local leisure centre was in danger of being shut down because it's not owned by the council. It's owned by some volunteers effectively. So we take our children swimming there now as part of their kind of swimming package. But linked to the arts, again, another thing that was in danger of closing down was a library. So what is guaranteed in our school is by the time that our children leave Royd Nursery Infant School is every single child has a library card. But through liaising with the librarians, the children aren't just read a book when they go there, they also do an art activity. So they're making that connection between actually reading is fun, because not all children do enjoy reading, which is really sad. But if we do the right things and do the right activities, and to be honest, whilst the children are absolutely amazing and they love listening to their teacher, just having somebody else come in to inspire them is really important. And then we obviously do Christmas performances that obviously I know most schools will do, but the choir is a huge driver of that. We have end of year concerts, so our year twos leave our infant school and go to the junior school, and we hire out a venue, and there's a whole host of things that go on there, from children singing, not just in the choir but within their classes, and then we have like a little creative kind of aspect of the performance. And because we've got really strong relationships with parents, we kind of know what children do outside of school. So one child kind of did a karate routine, but we had 3 children do a dance routine. We had another child that did a George Ezra performance, and honestly, that was unbelievable to do that in front, and the voice didn't match the child, but the confidence in a room full of like parents. So kind of we do that. And then the wider community, just going back to that as well, that the choir is a really kind of focal point to our school. And we've got obviously the arts lead has led the choir historically, but like I said, he's currently on maternity leave. But now we've got another member of staff, so that sustainable model, it hasn't gone to pot. And we support a local, when it's kind of Christmas time, for example, we support at a local community event where we go and sing Christmas kind of carols, for example, and the community absolutely love that. Through the Artsmark journey, we did also have something else in the pipeline, but COVID kind of put a stop to that. So one of the things that we wanted to do is we wanted to take our children to a nursing home and to kind of do some art activities with them and to sing to them, because I think that brings so much joy. But that's something, because of COVID, unfortunately, hasn't been able to happen, but is very much in the pipeline. So for us, it's not just like looking at the gold and thinking, oh, we're good enough. It's actually our journey. We're going to maintain all of those strengths that we've got, but our journey very much still continues. And that's one of the aspects, like I said, that will kind of hopefully further develop our kind of work within the community. And our successes in terms of singing and the arts will hopefully bring joy to many more people.
Those are fantastic examples, Sean. They all sound so exciting, absolutely brilliant. And you mentioned there about, you know, unfortunately because of COVID, that there was, you know, you weren't able to fulfill maybe as a visit to your local nursing home or other opportunities. Last question really is to ask you about, what are your skills? Do you have any future goals or ambitions that you'd like to work towards? Or was there anything that, you know, obviously children weren't able to perform or showcase or celebrate their work in the same way as we can now, thankfully. So you may want to do more opportunities of that. So yeah, tell us a little bit more about where you're headed and what else you'd like to do.
Yeah, so I think in terms of opportunities, I really feel actually that we ensured that children weren't at a disadvantage with COVID. So for example, like I said, risk assessments changed on the 1st of April for schools, and parents were welcomed in. And some of those events that we would have done, that we did do, sorry, in the summer term would have happened in the autumn or spring term. So I feel that parents, but actually because parents weren't allowed in, they were really happy not only to kind of like book the odd day off school, but book lots of days off or to sort childcare. So I think in the summer term, kind of parents and staff just felt that parents pretty much became part of the furniture.
That's wonderful.
So that's kind of how we kind of managed that situation. Whether we would have approached that in the same way if we would have been a straight through primary school, maybe not. We would have spread it out a little bit more, but because they were leaving us, what we really didn't want to happen was for children to be at a disadvantage. Really, that was absolutely essential. So answering your question in regards to that, I don't actually feel by the time the children left us that they were disadvantaged. You mentioned, sorry, there's something else that I feel that you mentioned that I can't quite recall.
So it was, any future goals? So you'd mentioned how wonderful it is to be able to perform again and showcase and celebrate children's work in person. I just wondered, is that something that you want to develop more or provide more opportunities moving forward? Or is there anything else, future goals that you want to go, right, this is what we'd like to look at now?
So one of the things in Sheffield is that they've set up again kind of subject leader meetings, which has been a real positive. So we've been able to share that practice. With us now becoming kind of like a soft federation and having a junior school as well, we've been able to kind of share practice, and that works both ways. They've got amazing practice, but it's kind of enhanced. We've benefited greatly from that relationship, as have they. Family of schools, for example, meetings and cluster meetings sadly haven't happened over COVID. And I think for us now, it's about sharing that practice amongst the wider kind of schools, because ultimately I don't see it as a competition that we kind of want to be better than any other school. I just want children to be successful and to meet kind of their maximum potential. And ultimately, we've got really strong practice at this school, and as have other schools. But if we can share that amongst family of school meetings and cluster meetings, that's only going to benefit all the children. So I think for myself moving forward, very much one of the focuses that I want to work on within our family of schools and within our cluster of schools is the arts. because it has so many benefits. So yeah, another next step for us is very much that kind of wider, whilst we've done work within the wider community, I feel it's kind of having that kind of journey now with the wider schools to kind of support each other really, and to be able to grow further with the arts.
That's fantastic, Sean. And I wanted to ask as well, just on a final note, you know, if any schools watching this, or any settings that are maybe quite similar to yours as well, or I'm sure many people have been inspired by what they've heard, are you happy for schools to, you know, have a chat with you or a conversation with you, or they can get in touch with me and I can pass them on to you? Just, I remember last year when we did these videos, you know, there were some schools that I'd love to speak to that teacher because that's what we're trying to do, or, you know, I'd love to hear more about that. Are you happy for anyone to get in touch if they've got any questions?
Very much so. So whether that's they just want to ask a question about the Artsmark process because we've been through it, or whether it's, or as part of this discussion, I heard maybe that curriculum design was really strong, and maybe that's something we're working on. Can we have a discussion around that? I'd be more than happy to. And in equal measure, if anybody wants to come and look at our school, because it's one thing talking about it, it's another thing seeing it. Our door's always open, and staff really welcome that. I'd be more than happy to kind of to meet with anybody and kind of share with you, kind of put our money where our mouth is. So you can, rather than just kind of taking it as read that these things are on display, I'd be more than happy to kind of show books, for delegates kind of come and look at lessons, just to kind of look at our curriculum design. More than happy to show practice, because ultimately I've learned from being supported by other settings, and I think we kind of have that moral obligation to kind of share that as well, because it comes back to, if that's going to benefit the children in their school, then why would I not want that, and why would we not want that as a setting?
Exactly. That's brilliant, Sean. Thank you so much. So if anyone has any questions, or Sean's very, you know, generous invitation, if you'd like to visit the school and see some of the work on display, talk to Sean more about maybe pupil voice or a curriculum, or all of this extensive CPD work, or anything else that Sean's talked about, and partnerships as well that he's developed, do get in touch with me, and I'll make sure that I pass your details on to Sean. So Sean, thank you so much again. What a fantastic interview this morning, and I'm sure everyone watching has felt fully inspired by what they've heard about your journey. And don't forget, everyone, we've got other videos as well from this week from a selection of great schools, and make sure you check them out. And if you've got any questions at all about your Artsmark journey, do get in touch with me as well, and I'll do my best to help you. But for now, thank you so much, and thanks again, Sean. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.